Askreddit. What do you swear you saw, but don't have any proof of? When I was about 10 they started putting missing children on milk cartons. Every morning for a while I was looking at this boy's face on the side of the milk while I would eat my cereal. Then one day a car went down my street while I was playing outside and there was a boy in the back seat with his face up close to the window looking out. I'm 99% sure it was the boy from the milk carton. I told my parents, but they didn't believe me. My house shares a dead-end alley with a brewery. Real cool guys, great beer, not a bad neighbor. Their kitchen does good work too. One of the neighborhood squirrels has figured this out. He got a taste for the chicken bones. Wings is a recurring menu item. So I'll see him go into the garbage, fetch a chicken wing, then go over to the grease dumpster, which is the most foul thing in human existence, and that little ducker will dunk that chicken bone in the grease and start tucking into it like it's his favorite thing. I've seen him do it a few times. Nobody believes me. Womp womp. Oh yeah, that squirrel is roided out too. He looks like one of those buff kangaroo photos. Has huge nuts. Sometimes will perch on my garage roof to take a leak. I think he's organizing a gang in the alley. As a child I touched some weird pest plant in our garden. I think it stung me. Then I saw everything in inverted colors for short time. And then back to normal. I was in such a shock, I couldn't explain it to my mom. I just went to her crying. I saw a bunch of crows, around 20 plus, gather around in a circle. I was like WTF and took a closer look to see 3 other crows in the middle of the circle, all on their backs. And some crows from the circle would hop in and try to peck at the 3 crows while they cawed and tried to defend themselves with their feet. I know crows are smart and all, but didn't expect this level of social behavior. It went on for a while before a kid ran in and scattered them all. My biology teacher in 7th grade told me she came across the same thing. Called it crow court and said that crows who broke the law were tried by others. The crimes were stealing food from young crows or mothers and killing defenseless crows. She said that sometimes they would just rip out a few feathers from the tail so they couldn't fly for a while, and sometimes they'd kill it, depending on the severity of the offense. Of course she also used a rock for deodorant and brought a bunch of animals to class without permission, so who knows. Edit. I know now that the rock is alum. Thanks for the info. I'm in line at a cafeteria. The guy in front of me is holding a pudding cup. Someone walking by stumbles and falls into pudding cup guy, knocking his pudding cup out of his hand. While everyone is looking at stumbling guy, the pudding cup goes a good 2 feet straight up in the air. Pudding cup guy is totally focused and at the last second turns and catches the pudding cup behind his back. He looks at me, smiles, and that was that. No one else saw it. I was at the airport and saw a businessman with a carry-on wheelie bag get off the escalator. He turned the corner, broke into a sprint carrying the bag by its small strap handle on top. He swung the bag forward and let go of the strap handle. While it was in midair he grabbed the currently unextended extending handle, pressed the button, and on the backswing extended the handle and landed it on its wheels and continued sprinting, all without breaking stride. My friend and I were watching basketball in the early days that Charles Barkley was a panelist. He was apologizing for calling a team midgets and saying that he now knew it was offensive. But as they were going to commercial, we both heard him say over a hot mic, besides, they shouldn't hate me, they should hate God. My friend and I were amazed and convinced he would be fired. But not only did we never hear about it again, the clip doesn't even exist online anywhere. It's as though we had a double delusion. I was having a secret smoke one night, and when I was finished I went to put the ashtray in my hiding place on the top of a high cupboard in my kitchen. Instead of getting the footstool I was on my tiptoes and stretching up to put the ashtray up there when I lost my balance and the ashtray slipped out of my fingers and fell down to the floor. I ducked out of the way so I didn't get covered in ash or get hit by the heavy glass ashtray, and I heard it hit the ground behind me loudly and then clatter as it rolled. I sighed as I knew I'd have to clean up ash from the floor and was annoyed at myself for being clumsy. But then when I turned around to where I had heard it land, there was nothing there. I honestly spent about 30 minutes looking all over that kitchen for the ashtray or even a trace of ash on the floor, but there was nothing. It and its contents had simply vanished into thin air. I went to bed totally freaked out that night and had another look the next morning, but it was still gone, and I've never seen it again since. When I was about 12, I was riding in the backseat of the family car. I looked over, and the car next to me had 3 people sitting in the front. This was in the 1980s, and it was a man, woman, and man. In that order. At the stoplight, the woman leaned down, and the 2 men leaned in, and started making out. This was the first time I had seen anything like this. I was so dumbfounded, I couldn't even tell my family. A fat squirrel in a tree threw a piece of fried chicken at me. I was walking to class and passed by a trash can with a domed lid. On top was a bottom piece of a bun. As was walking by it, a squirrel came out of the trash can and put a Chick-fil-A chicken on top of the bun, then went back inside the trash can. I assume it was to get the top bun. I really wish I took a photo of it. Another instance was a squirrel with a cigarette butt in its mouth. When I was about 6, my entire family was helping to build my grandparents a new house. I was helping my dad move some really long 2x4s from the lumber pile when a mouse ran out from under the board I had moved, out in the middle of the woods. Mice were no big deal to any of us. I did a double take though, because the mouse was freaking blue. I don't mean the sun reflected off its fur and it had a blue sheen to it, I mean a brilliant, royal blue. He was running fast, but I got my dad to notice it too, and he agreed that the mouse really was royal freaking blue. We've told multiple people, my mom included, and no one believes us. But we know what we saw. I was at the Shed Aquarium in Chicago. I walked up to the cuttlefish tank, and for some reason all 20 or so of the cuttlefish rushed over to me. It was a big tank, maybe 10 feet long. I walked the length of it, and they followed me. I walked back, and they followed. A few other people saw, and tried it themselves. But alas, the cuttlefish only had eyes for me. My best guess as to the cause was that the guy who feeds them is my doppelganger. Once when I was a teenager I was watching a movie by myself. The TV room then had 2 chairs separated by a couch. I was on the chair to the right, and at one point I laughed really hard at the movie. I heard someone else laugh and saw what seemed to be a girl my age double over in laughter in the other chair. The weird thing is it didn't startle me, it just felt nice to share laughter. Then I realized that I was alone in the whole house and the chair was empty. So I turned off the TV and went outside lol. Not my story, but my brother's. He lost his wallet and was retracing his steps looking for it. A homeless man approached him at a coffee shop and said to him, "Don't worry, it's in the bathroom sink. Your wallet is in your bathroom sink." Later that night he did indeed find his wallet at home in the bathroom sink. A few days later, he saw the same homeless man and thanked him for his help. The guy became really irritated and told my brother he had never seen him before. Could have been a lucky guess, but I think magical bun makes for a better story. When I was around 10 years old I went down to a lake when I was on holiday. When I get down there I vividly remember a massive ball of lightning just hovering, and then it struck the middle of the lake. I never ran so fast in my life back to the lit house we were staying in. A chameleon escaped from a bag when my friend was giving it to me, and it leapt into a big pile of snow. I looked around for it for a while, but couldn't find it, so I gave up. Several weeks later the snow all melted, and I was out there and found the lizard partially frozen to the ground. I peeled him off and put it in one of those little plastic tanks and sat it by the radiator in my house. Within an hour or two the lizard was hopping around the cage like nothing ever happened. It lived for several years after that and was known to my friend and I as Jesus the Resurrection Lizard. One time when I was playing billiards with a friend, the cue ball passed right through one of the other balls like one of them was made of thin air. We both saw it, we both freaked out. For reference, the cue ball was teetering on the edge of a pocket and was physically blocked off by the other ball. There was no possible way to strike the cue ball without hitting the other ball, yet somehow, the cue ball went through it like it wasn't even there. I like to attribute it to a glitch in the Matrix. More seriously, I wonder if we weren't suffering a hallucination from something like carbon monoxide poisoning, but it was a public building, and there was never any strange incident of that nature there as far as I know, so that seems an unlikely explanation. When I was about 10 or 11 we were having a get together at grandma's house for the holidays. All of us cousins played all day, and when night fell we played hide and seek. While the adults smoked and drank up by the house, we stayed on the back of the property just having a good time. I was hiding in between a bush and the property fence when I heard the strangest sound. It was almost a scream, both happy and miserable at the same time. I jumped up and kinda shouted. All my cousins heard it, and we all saw it too. It was an animal on 2 legs, and it ran off with really jerky motions. Being the oldest by about 3 years, I calmed down the crying little ones and explained as best I could that it was just someone trying to scare us. I've had nightmares about that sound. In my mind it seems a grotesque mimicry of our joyous screams and laughter as we played. None of my cousins today will admit to even remembering the incident, although the adults remembered the commotion it caused. You've been visited by the cool trouser Kate. You will be blessed with soft comfortable pant, but only if you comment, cool pant Kate.